Welcome to Cosmic Soul Sisters. We're a portal to all things mystical, magical, and spiritual, and we're helping to raise the consciousness of this humanity one conversation at a time. I'm your Cosmic Soul Sister, Shara.
I'm your Cosmic Soul Sister, Leah.
And in today's episode, we will be taking a deep dive into the chakra system, talking about healing with chakra work, Reiki, healing, Shamanic Journey, just to name a few. We'll also be talking about how to let go of old paradigms. And we are honored to introduce our guest today, Christine Renee. She is a Reiki master and a chakra coach and an amazing healer. So welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys.
Yay. So I've worked with you personally and had some amazing experiences, but for our listeners, I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about your work and maybe begin by telling us a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. So I was exposed to Reiki at a very young age. My dad was doing Reiki when I was a kid, believe it or not. And I was there witnessing things from that child perspective of Reiki that really planted some seeds so that when I was introduced to it as a child, it was like, oh yeah, I want to learn how to do that. And so when I was in my early 20s, I was working at a birth center, learning how to catch babies and to support mamas. And I don't know what I was thinking because I was only 20, but I, in the process, learned Reiki as well. A lot of the midwives were doing Reiki at the same time. And so I picked it up as one of my tools to support moms in labor. And that was kind of where it all really began. But then, as we all know, life happens, things show up. And I really started going down a path that kind of made me put my passions aside. I got married to a very narcissistic, emotionally abusive partner and had a child at the age of 24 and really needed to figure out a way to honor myself and just get out of the relationship. And so I was witnessing language that was being used in the home. And I was like, I do not want my son to think this is an appropriate way to talk to women. And that was my driving factor to get out of the house. It wasn't the words and the emotional violence that was going on. It was very much like, I need to protect my son from him understanding that this is normal. And so I left the relationship and really started recommitting to my Reiki work. I started to learn shamanic practices. And that's really when things started to shift for me. It was when I could say, I need to heal me first. And I had to have that lesson a few times. I have to heal me first. I have to heal me first. Because oftentimes, you know, especially when we have young kids and life is going on and we're busy and we're trying to make money to like just pay basic rent and those things, like it's hard to have a spiritual practice, even if you are a spiritual individual. And so I constantly had this lesson about boundaries, you know, personal boundaries with my ex, emotional boundaries, psychic boundaries, and all of these boundaries needed to be built in place so that I could choose me first. And that was really kind of how my story kind of went. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I was in another low, a dark night of the soul when my daughter was born. I got remarried to a wonderful man. I'm in a beautiful partnership. We have a beautiful family unit together. And, but my daughter didn't sleep. Like she was born colicky and just had a lot of health issues, which then made me have health issues, which made my anxiety go up. And then I was getting emotionally harassed by my ex-husband for all kinds of things. And it came to a point where I just said, you know what? I'm done. I'm just done with getting emotionally involved in this trauma and revolving the circle and have repeated patterns over and over and over again. I'm sure many of our listeners can relate to that. And so I ended up hitting time out and just giving up temporary custody for my son and taking care of myself and just really committing to my own practice and stop resisting what my spirit guides were telling me to do, which was to do Reiki, to do the spiritual practice. But my own head was like, but what about the money? How am I going to pay for things? Right. And so when I could just go, you know what, I'm going to just take care of myself first and heal me first, then as I healed and really healed through the chakras as my map, then I could overflow in abundance to others. But I had to take care of me first. And in that healing journey, I was then able to become the practitioner that I wanted to become the teacher that I knew I could be, and really evolve my life path to where I wanted to become. And that is to be a healer and a supporter for other practitioners all around the world. So that's a little bit about my history.
That's wonderful.
And so currently, you have been working on a program right now for people that are in the same type of position that you were in?
Yeah, I mean, I spent the last few years doing different types of programs to really help people, regardless of whether they were a Reiki practitioner or really just anyone who really wanted to do that inner work. And I've kind of up-leveled it this year that my main signature program that I'm offering for 2021 will be for healers, practitioners, light workers who really want to do the internal work and start their Reiki, their practice, start their healing practice, their work, their program with the tools to be a really phenomenal transformational coach.
And would you say to people that are maybe in a situation that you were in where you were maybe resisting a little bit of what your guides had been telling you to do, what would you say the main thing would be, the very first step that they could take?
So I would probably tell them, like, you're paddling upstream. Like, do you know how, like, envision yourself in the canoe and you're trying to paddle upstream, and how much work and force it takes to do that action. Bringing in that metaphor can really help people go, you know, that's kind of how my life is. I'm really, really trying really, really hard to do it this one way. And then the option is, are you ready to let go of the oars and just see where the universe takes you, see where the boat takes you? And it's this surrendering to letting the universe kind of unfold before you rather than trying to control it. And so by letting go of those oars and letting your ship sail where it needs to be, things can go one day at a time. It doesn't have to be a race. It doesn't have to be. I was very much a type A, high strung, fierce mama bear. And it was, I created that, I created that situation. And when I could surrender and say, all right, what do you guys want me to do today? What's the top thing that would help me progress in whatever program offering that I'm doing now? What is that one thing? And just not getting too caught up in all of the details and just focusing on that one needle point mover and focusing on that.
So many people can resonate. I like when you're telling this story, I can see myself in your shoes so much. And I'm sure our listeners can. Yeah, absolutely. Right, Shara? Can you see that?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that is so much of what healers and light workers experience. It's like we have to know the contrast, and so we have the darkness so that the light seems brighter. And it's not to say that the dark is bad or evil or shouldn't have happened. It's actually the gift that lets you become the person that you are today, so that you can really shine your light, that you can really stand in your truth and your authentic worthiness, your birthright of being who you are. And so sometimes we need to go through those dark shadow places so that we can really stand in our truth.
I feel like more often than not, I hear light workers with a story, whether it's like addiction or maybe childhood abuse or like a marriage like that, which is very similar to what I went through. Like truly, your story is very, very, very similar. Very difficult marriage, but I do feel like light workers are given that as a way to grow.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like, especially when you start doing any of the like diving into like past life understanding of what this relationships mean, oftentimes the person that you are going through that struggle with was the person in your past life. And this is, once again, we're revolving patterns to highlight who we are supposed to be becoming. We need these, like my ex is the person that in the past has been the magistrate who hung me as a witch, and he, like all of these things. And, when I talk to my past life worker, she's like, no, you are doing great this lifetime. You guys haven't killed each other yet, So it's very much like we are in this motion, and part of it is to decide, okay, am I going to continue the repeated patterns, or am I going to choose to evolve? Am I going to choose a new path for me? Am I going to learn the lesson and stop getting triggered by the same thing over and over and over again? So I'm in a very different place than I am today than I was 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. And being able to get emotionally hooked and triggered was a very different experience then than it is today. Like it takes a lot to get through my shell, because why? Because the solar plexus is so strong, and knowing who I am. So the solar plexus in particular is about understanding who you are and who you're not. And so when you can say, I am not this, and I'm not this, and I'm not this, and I am fully and embracing this is who I am. When someone tries to hook you in emotionally, and then you see it, that's not who I am anymore. I can choose, do I want to go down this road of being emotionally triggered, or do I want to take a new path? And so when you do the chakra work, when you do the energy work, there becomes a space for awareness. And awareness is always the first step of healing, I tell people. So when we become aware, wow, I got really angry over that telephone conversation, and I can't stop thinking about it. And then you pause and you have the awareness that this is going on. Then you can be like, what is that about the other person projecting their own hurtness, their own stuff, and how much of it is showing and revealing to me what still needs to be worked on within myself. Yeah.
When you were doing your healing work, do you notice, like you mentioned the solar plexus, but did you notice that was the main chakra that you found blockages or imbalances in?
I think for me personally, yes, because I also was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which colitis is very much, your intestines and being able to release things and let go of shit, right? And so, and ulcerative colitis is also that ulcers piece, and that's your fire, anger, and so I had a lot of stuff going on in my solar plexus. This is also where you'll oftentimes find just that it's a lot of fiery energy, that you just are so angry about what has occurred in the past that needs to be released and let go. And then also a lot probably going on down in root chakra. And that felt more into the anxiety of wanting to make sure all of the pieces were in place. That type A-ness, very much root chakra, because root chakra is your foundation. It's about having all of your needs met. And when we have all of our needs met, our physiological needs met, food, water, shelter, a reliable car for transportation, all of those basic needs, when you are worried about how am I going to pay rent, or how am I going to get the groceries that I need, or, all of those things, it really shifts your foundation, and oftentimes goes back to childhood and some of the limiting beliefs that are stored from your childhood. And so as I was working through my own chakras, so what happened was, when I was doing my own healing work, I was learning about the chakras, and I decided to teach shamanic meditation classes at a local yoga studio. It was kind of my way in to get a lot of people in at once so that they could have a flavor of the way I teach, my own unique style, and introduce them to Reiki, because at the time, no one really knew what Reiki was. Like, I live in a town that at the time was probably 40,000 people. Now it's a lot bigger. All of a sudden we had this population boom, but we didn't have a lot of people who really understood what energy work was, what Reiki was, but they understood meditation, and they might have heard of what chakras were. And so I was like, okay, great. Let's bring them in for a chakra meditation class and give them a flavor of how I teach and what my flavor is, and introduce what Reiki is and invite them in to come in for sessions. And in that process, every week I did a guided meditation specifically on one chakra. And so over the 7 weeks, that series, I was doing a deep dive in on the material, on what is root chakra all about? What is sacral chakra all about? What are these components, and how can I incorporate this into a shamanic meditation experience? And so as I was working through that, I realized, wow, this is where my stuff is. Oh, and this is where my stuff is. And this is where my stuff is. And oftentimes what I find is that, especially when we have harbored old emotions, when we've harbored a lot of hurt feelings and we kind of are shoving things down, it's not just one chakra that's out of balance. It's usually many of them. And so it's about like looking at it like an onion, and you're taking off one layer and one layer and one layer. And finally, you'll get to the core sense of what needs to be healed. And for me, that main limiting belief was worthiness. And that is very much solar plexus. I'm worthy to have a healthy, happy marriage. I'm worthy to have good relationships with my children. I'm worthy to have a growing practice. I'm worthy to have the money come into my life. I'm like whatever it is, right? And so, yeah, I really felt very connected into solar plexus. And I think for so many women in particular, worthiness is not something that it's not really cultivated in our culture. I mean, just looking at what we read as a child and all those magazines saying that you have to look this way and you have to do these things, and the model for what women are given as a stereotype is so inconsistent with what we actually need and the self-care that we need to wrap ourselves in to feel really healthy and whole. And knowing that whatever our truth is, our passion, our purpose is unique to us. It doesn't need to look like anyone else's. It doesn't need to match what society says we're supposed to do.
So Christine, you mentioned a little bit about shamanic meditation. Could you, just for our listeners, let us know a little bit more about what that entails and what, I guess, shamanism is as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trained in shamanic work back in like 2009 as part of my getting ready for, or even really understanding that I wanted a divorce. Like, I really needed to do this internal work. And so I was doing the shamanic work to really learn how to communicate with my guides. So in shamanism, and the key component of shamanic work is the shamanic journey. And so the shamanic journey is about traveling to different spiritual realms to gain access to wisdom from your guides. So there's 3 main realms in particular. One is the upper world. The upper world usually has your spirit guides, your guardian angels, your council members, like hello, team members, typically in the form, like in the human form. And they typically speak fairly directly. They want to give you information, and they're going to hold you to your soul contract. So as we came into this life, what did we want to accomplish? What did we want to agree to? And they're going to help us bring us into opportunities to check those off the list, right? So I needed to learn how to have boundaries. Hello, narcissistic partner, So like, that is part of their job, is to hold us accountable. Even if it's not the funnest experiences, they want us to be put in situations that we learn and evolve. So that's a little bit on the upper world. The other shamanic realm that I typically travel to and help bring clients to is the lower world. Now, the lower world is our power animals. And oftentimes you'll find mythical creatures there, your dragons, unicorns, all those mythical creatures. And there you really, it's like a completely different feeling, in the fact that they're here to protect us. They really want us to survive. And they speak through symbolism. And when I feel it in my body, this is really like sacral chakra, root chakra, solar plexus, because everything is symbolic. They want to communicate in a different way so that you have depth of information. So if, for example, I had a client who was like, should I be with this guy or should I be with this guy? Okay, very black and white question. And so I could go to the upper world and they could just say yes or no, or I could go to the lower world and they could show me something that has more depth of information. So I brought her to the lower world, and what they showed me was a treasure chest. And in the treasure chest was all these little figurines of different men. And one would come up and it was this guy and it would fall back in. And then the other one would come up and felt like this guy and he fell back in. And then from the depths of the treasure box came this one figurine that was like illuminated. And I got a flash of her future self with her daughter who was like 8, so it was way out in the future. And I'm like, this is what I'm seeing. Like, neither one of these guys are meant for you. Like, he's coming. Don't worry about it. Don't focus on this right now. Right. So it kind of gives you much more depth of what you want to experience. They're also, it feels like when I'm there, they give you a sense of comfort. So when we're born, you're assigned a power animal because we're the weakest species on the earth. We have to be cared for as babies in such a way that the animal kingdom really is showing up to be matched with us, to give us strength to survive. And so that's why you often see kids with stuffies and getting really attached to their teddy bear or their, whatever comfort animal that they have. It's because of this knowingness that in the spiritual realm, they're here with us to protect us. And so they're very much more of the protectors and want to help us feel into situations and shelter us. So they're always a good place to go for comfort.
Do
most
people have one animal guide that you find, or is there several, and do they change over your lifetime?
That's a great question. So typically you have one primary power animal, but you can have numerous because they'll pop in for different times. Like if you're struggling with one thing, you might get a specific power animal. Like let's say that you're having a really hard time expressing yourself and then all of a sudden Crow shows up. Well, Crow doesn't care what anyone else thinks and it's going to like squawk at anything, right? And so you can have, when you're working on certain areas of your body, you can have different power animals that show up in your life to give you strength in that quality that they possess. Yeah.
Can you tell, do you take someone on a journey to find them, or can they find them on their own, your clients?
So with my upcoming program, the Chakra Clairvoyant Coaching Certification, it will be training you to journey on your own, because really, like I can do it for you, but isn't it so much more empowering to see and feel and view things from your own lens and your own background? And so it's so much more potent for you to learn how to do it yourself, but it's not something you can pick up on necessarily overnight, right? And so I played around with different beta tests to like figure out what works well for people. And really, like I studied shamanic practices for 6 months on a weekly basis to really feel comfortable doing it on my own. And that's why it's part of our 7-month program, so that you really have the guidance and personal development happening simultaneously, so that you can really hone in on, so that you're a confident practitioner at the end and doing basic readings for people by the end of it.
So excited. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. And when you learn how to do Shamanic Journey, like for me, it was so easy to mesh it in with shamanic guided meditation. So I was mixing meditation and shamanic practices. So I'd be guiding people to the lower world or to the upper world in a group setting so that they could experience answers or experience themselves in a different way. And in that, everything is symbolic in the shamanic world. Everything has a deeper purpose. So if you see a red tulip, well, what does that mean? Well, tulips are, the fresh of spring. It's the first thing that blooms. It's red, so it's tied to root chakra. Like, you can unfold it in so many ways. So when you start becoming clairvoyant, that clear seeing and opening your perception, everything can have a deeper experience, whether you're seeing it through a shamanic lens during a journey or daytime. Like, I live in a really beautiful place where there's mountains all around and we have wildlife. So when I go out for my walk and I see cranes flying overhead, or I see a bunny run across my path, I go, what was that? What is the universe trying to tell me there? And so I really tune into and have the mindfulness of, what does this all mean? What is the universe trying to show me?
Totally. You were talking about upper world and the lower world. When you get messages, or most people get messages from their guides, you mentioned that it would be like just the answer or maybe a phrase. But is it always in your experience that you get the visions from the lower world? Is that how I understood it?
It really depends on your own personal gifts, your own spiritual gifts, and what hones in for you. Some people see things and hear things like a movie screen. Others, it's black and white. Others, it's about a feeling into and a knowingness that they're being supported. So it's very individualistic. And for me personally, it comes across similar to a movie screen. Typically, sometimes I get a little color, but for the most part, I've been clairaudient for a long time. So when I was a child, I grew up Catholic. I loved hanging out in Catholic church. Why? Because all the statues would talk to me. Like, I could hear into all of these different saints. And so it was very easy for me to pick up on shamanic work because I already had the clairvoyant from my childhood. It was just kind of buried. And so as I welcomed it back in, it was like, oh yeah, we're getting messages now. And then it's not necessarily seeing everything. Like, it's okay if you just get a glimpse. Okay, all I'm seeing is a chalice. Okay, what does a chalice symbolize? So it doesn't always have to be the fullness. Sometimes it starts out just getting glimpses, just getting pieces. And those pieces are the start of just being aware of them and fully understanding them. And then as you practice, it becomes more and more full screen.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for me personally, I might get a vision, but do I know that that's, who's that coming from, I guess? If you have a vision, it's not necessarily the lower world or the upper world.
If you just get visions, if you get things, I would say feel into like, this is coming from universal, higher source wisdom coming through. Mm-hmm. Especially if you have some type of spiritual practice, that totally happens all the time, right? Like, we get messages, we have intuition nudges, and those are just, even if we don't identify it as a specific guide helping us see this specific thing, all of our guides are reflections of ourselves in some capacity. Mm-hmm. And so when you take it all together, the whole accumulation of our spirit guides, our spirit team, our power animals, it's in connection with higher source wisdom. And so that higher source wisdom is then speaking through to us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I think it's superhuman of me to want to know exactly who that was and, which animal was that.
Yeah, right.
Want to like have delineations between all the information,
and through the training and practices, it then becomes that, like, who's speaking to you. Like someone asked me the other day, like, how many guides do you have now? And I'm like, well, let's see, there's my guardian angel, and he comes with a team of 3 others, and we've had past lives together. And then we have we have Joseph, and he helps me with time. And then, like, I have all, like, probably 10 to 15 different guides, and I have relationships with them in different ways, and I call upon them for different things, and so after, years of practicing, you start going, okay, this guide is for this thing. Like, I have a treasure guide. Like, if I wanted to, like, really help with money manifestation. Like, I'm going to lean on him because he's got the things, like he's got the tools to set that up, so there's different types of guides, and you can ask for a specific guide. Like, you can actually like, I've contracted guides where it's like, I need someone to help me with this. Who's going to show up for me? And like, I'll even have a shamanic journey to sign a contract with a new guide and saying, these are our terms and conditions for our relationship, and that they're going to be providing these services, because it really is whatever you want to create. And the universe wants to provide whatever your soul desire is. And so absolutely, you can manifest having specific guides that help you with specific things.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Do you think you've been a guide before in past?
That's funny. Yeah, I have. Yeah, absolutely. Like, my team of guardian angel guides, like, we've come in and each one of us rotate.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
I love it. I love it because I feel like that's what I'm doing, just in a physical body.
Really.
Yeah.
I know we want to talk about chakras a little bit. Do you want to switch gears and do that?
Totally. I'm happy to.
More?
Do you want me to do like a quick overview of what the chakras are and what each of them represent?
That'd be beautiful.
Okay, cool. I love this conversation. This is so much fun. So chakras are Sanskrit for wheel. And so we have these 7 primary energy centers within the body, and they correlate right along the spine. And really, you want to feel into the energetics of a spinning wheel. This is the motion that it should be moving. It should be moving and flowing. And when one gear is moving and flowing and the next gear is moving and flowing, we have an even, like, it's flowing from one to the next. But when we have one gear that's flowing and one that's stuck, let's say it's the heart chakra and there's been heartbreak, or there's grief going on and it's not really moving, or it's not moving well, guess what? That other gear is now starting to slow down too. And the gear, so it really has this effect on the other chakras when one is stuck or stagnant. And what happens is with energy is that as we process emotions, our emotions are our first line of communication to ourselves. When we feel something and we ignore it and we shove those emotions down, then it becomes stagnant energy in the body. And that energy in the body gets stuck in those chakras, and or even sometimes specific areas in the body. And when we have the same thing comes to the surface, the same emotion come up again and again, and we keep ignoring it, it then becomes a weak link. And so think about stress. When we have a lot of stress in our life, oftentimes we're more susceptible to catching a cold or getting sick. And so we want to think about, okay, when we shove our emotions down, then we are creating stress in the body and the stagnation in the body. And so our emotions are our first line to communicate, hey, there's something going on. And then when we ignore that and we ignore that, then it comes into physical manifestation, saying, let's say you have back pain. Well, now you have back pain, and your back pain is like, yo, I'm trying to get your attention about this emotional hurt that you keep pushing down. And now it's stuck in my low back. So every time that we have a physical ailment, dis-ease, something going on in the body, there's an emotional component to it. 95% of the time, in my own personal experience, there's always something underneath it that your emotional body is trying to speak to you on. And so when we focus in on the chakras, we really get to experience and understand the emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects of our body and where things are residing. So root chakra is all about having a really healthy foundation, having all of those needs met, as I mentioned previously. And so when we feel safe, that's the primary emotion of root chakra. When we feel safe, we can do a lot of other things. We can move forward into our future because we feel safe to do so. When we don't feel safe, when anxiety takes over, it's going to help us stay stagnant and pull back. This is also where typically we have really old hurts that we bury. It tends to go here. And they're just holding us back from moving forward into the future confidently. And then when we move up to sacral chakra is really the area between pubic bone and belly button. That's our sacral chakra. And it's all about creativity. Think about that area as our space for procreation. It's our space for creating new life. Well, it's also the same for emotionally. Like emotionally, this is our manifestation center. It wants to be sensual. It wants to be joyful. It wants to be playful and creative. And so this is a really fun space, and it really loves to create and wants to co-create with the divine. And here we also have, when did we play and have fun and we're like supposed to be doing that, was in our childhood. And so our childhood wounds tend to sit here. So and this is where, when it's not easily flowing, oftentimes addictions come out of sacral chakra, because we're trying to feed our inner child with something else rather than healing our inner child, our inner wounds. And so then when we move up to solar plexus, this is the area between the navel and the sternum, so the end of the breastbone. And this is our passion. This is our fire. And it really wants it really wants you to know who you are and who you're not, knowing that you're fully worthy of who you are, and have that self-care, that self-love, anything with self in front of it, like that's what it really wants to gain. Because as you do that self-work, you can understand who you're not, and you stop becoming a wavering individual. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, in the solar plexus, and when it's stable, when it's steady, when it's flowing, when it's moving, you're like, yeah, I want to say yes to that opportunity. Yes, I want to do this. And when something comes along that doesn't feel in alignment, it's an easy no, right? There's no more wavering when the solar plexus is healthy. And when it can be overactive too. Like when it's overactive, that's the narcissism. That's, I'm the center of attention. I'm the best person in the room. It's the too much of solar plexus. But also, whether it's narcissism, it's hiding an inner wound. Like they're showing up in that capacity, trying to overcompensate. And so oftentimes, whether it's swinging underactive or overactive, it's compensating for something deeper, some inner wound that's going on that needs to be healed. And then we move up to heart chakra, and heart chakra, everyone relates heart chakra to love, and that's totally accurate. It's all about being able to receive and welcome in loving relationships, and then giving and supporting loving relationships. So it's a two-way circuit. So we have our left hand, arm, feminine energy, receiving energy, receiving things that are coming into our life. And then right side is masculine, and it's giving and supporting relationships, so that we have this two-way energetic flow going on through our heart chakra of compassion. And so when this is open and flowing, you can say yes to help, and you can give help. You can say yes to meeting new people and forming new relationships. And when you can also say no and form boundaries and have structure, and going, I'm not willing to do this, right? And so that's heart chakra. And when it's open and flowing, it can be very loving and imbalanced, and it feels centered, right? And then things that show up in our life, like heartbreak, like grief, like all these things, can shut it down. And so then we move into throat chakra, and throat chakra is all about expressing yourself. So expressing your needs, desires, and wants, and then also ears, listening to others people's true needs, desires, and wants. So this is a two-sided coin of being able to both vocalize what we need and hear other people without like cutting them off, like truly listening rather than just preparing to respond. And so there's this two-way going on in the throat chakra that really needs to be in balance, so that you can move your passion and drive from the solar plexus through your heart with compassion and express yourself, and then hear others and what they need in the relationship. The two upper chakras, the third eye and crown, are very much tied to source. So third eye is about really it's about perception, about perceiving the world. Are you perceiving the world through a lens that everything that's going to happen to me is going to be hard, it's going to be rough, it's not going to work out? Like, is that your lens? Or is your lens like, the universe has got my back, everything I do is, everything that happens is for my greater good and for my purpose? Or is it, like, so what's your lens? What shades are you putting on? Are you looking at the world with rosy colored glasses? Or are you looking at like, oh, this is just, everything's going to, go wrong for me today? So a lot of it's perception. And then it's also incorporates intellectual workings, our logical mind. So how much are we spending time in studying or analyzing or really picking things apart can be going on in that intellectual part of our brain, as well as our spiritual connection to our guides, clear seeing. So that's the really understanding your spiritual gifts and tuning into them, letting those open up so that you can perceive the world in a different way, that you can see beyond what is physically right in front of you in this three-dimensional reality. Right. And then our crown chakra is right at the top of our head. And it's very much about understanding life from the bigger picture, that we are in connection and that separation is an illusion. So we're in connection with the divine, and that the divine gives us these energetic nudges, that they give us these energetic downloads so that we can act upon them. And so when the crown chakra is open, so much wisdom can come through in that. And when it's out of balance, it's like you see everything in black and white. It's either right or wrong. It's science or it's not, like it's very, so it can be very closed to a lot of people because they're not open to that spiritual, higher perspective, connection with divine, and understanding that we're all energy. We're all in the bigger picture. We're all interconnected. We're interconnected with the earth. We're interconnected with spirit. We're interconnected with the moon and all of these larger, bigger picture things. So this is like big purpose, how we are going to live our life in the world in this human suit through this crown chakra perspective. So that was my really quick run through of the chakras.
Very well done, I have to say. Very impressive.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no, you were mentioning how the chakras can get blocked. And I know that you do chakra analysis. Is that how you say analysis?
Yep, totally.
How does one know if it's blocked? Like without doing, can you do a self-analysis, or what are the steps somebody would take?
So next week, I'm going to be offering a free 7-day chakra jumpstart, and we're going to really be diving into one chakra every day. And oftentimes it can be, you really sense it really fast. Even when I was talking, you might have picked up on like, oh yeah, there's some things going on there. Oh yeah, there might be some things going on there. Right. So sometimes it doesn't take a lot to have the awareness that, oh, there might be some things that are inhibiting me in that area. And so oftentimes, you can grab a book. Like a lot of the chakra information that's available is pretty on. It's just going to give you the surface level. Whereas I take people to a much deep dive so that you're really uncovering the source issue and the source areas that need to be healed so that you can fully heal, so that the traumas of the past and the things that have gone on aren't continuing to inhibit you from that full energy that wants to flow into your system. So if you're noticing a block, like there is so many ways to heal the chakras. And that's why I love doing chakra work, because it's not a one set thing for everyone. Like if yoga is your thing, you can do yoga for the chakras. If it's acupuncture, if it's journaling, if it's affirmations, if it's hula hooping for the sacral chakra, like there are so many different exercises, and what I like to call them is activating actions. So with my chakra clairvoyant coaching certification program that I'm going to be offering starting in January, we're really learning how to learn activating actions for ourselves and for our clients, offering activating actions so that they can work on healing their chakras in between sessions. So these are things such as, let's say you have a solar plexus block and you know it's rooted in anger. And so if you know that you have anger issues, I'm going to be giving you specific exercises that are going to help you uncover your anger and release it in a healthy way so that it doesn't just blow up at your spouse, right? Like there's certain ways to heal the underlying hurts that you can do in a healthy manner so that you can start healing and bringing more energy into that. And there's activating actions for all of the chakras. And so really figuring out, like, I like to give people a buffet, like that's what I call it. Like, here's the buffet table. It's like not one way is going to work for every single person. And that's why sometimes affirmations work really great for one person and they won't for the next. And that yoga might work for some people and it might not for the next. And so having an idea of like, what do I want to incorporate in my everyday life? What feels really good to myself, my emotional body, my physical body, and my spiritual body, so that I can incorporate those things into my life so that I can really blossom into the person that I'm becoming.
Mm-hmm. You do find that some people want to skip straight to the crown, right? And the third eye as they're trying to develop their psychic senses, or
I think it's more of like being in the spiritual community. Oftentimes there is a hyper awareness focus on I can do this, like I can see in, or this hyper focus on just working on their third eye and crown chakra, and that's all they need. And it's like, yeah, that's great that you can disassociate and tune in to 6-dimensional beings or 8-dimensional beings or whatever, and like that's awesome. Yet your life is out of control. You have no money. You're in an emotional abusive relationship. And why do you think you want to go disassociate? Because all of that is so hard.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of learning to heal yourself, put the boundaries in place and set expectations for others on how to treat you through self-respect.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being able to live in your life, function in your life, be healthy and happy, right? In
Absolutely.
the world.
And I think people don't realize that that is actually a possibility, that you can have a healthy, joyful, playful, compassionate experience in your body, in your life, and be able to tap into source and feel into their wisdom and get nuggets of intuitional nudges, and you can act upon those. And when you act, when everything is flowing and that's coming through, man, life is so much fun. Life is it feels easy. It's like all of a sudden I get an idea and it's like, oh, that's freaking brilliant. I'm going to just go do it. And then I do it. And then another one comes and it's like the next piece and the next piece and the next piece. Because I'm an open conduit, since I've done the internal work, it can flow in and it doesn't get caught up on blockages.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does take work. It does take, and the work can be fun. Like, I don't necessarily think that you need to go scratch up old childhood wounds to do the healing work. Like, it could very much be like, okay, we understand that the inner child is hurting, that she's not seen for, she didn't get experience everything that she wanted to do. So what does the inner child want to play with today?
Mm-hmm.
It's an easy bake oven. Great. Let's go bake. It's coloring. Great. Let's go do that. It's hopscotch. Let's go do that. So it's very much not necessarily rehashing the past. It's about tuning into what's going to help bring balance and feed our inner child, that's going to feed and heal those inner wounds so that we can come back into balance. So it doesn't have to be this deep shadow work at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips for maybe some of our listeners who have difficulties tuning in and getting those hits about the Easy Bake Oven or whatever it is?
Yeah. Really, it's about taking a time out and beginning to have a mindfulness practice, because what typically shows up is egos getting in the way, our own brain processes are getting in the way, so that we've got a lot of clutter. Ultimately comes with, we've got too much clutter going on in our heads and we're thinking about things way too much. So one, uncluttering your home is a great way to unclutter your mind. So if that's a cleanup, if that's getting rid of junk that you're not using, whatever is in your external environment, and this is very much a shamanic perception of the way I see things, your internal health and wellness is expressed externally. So when we are having internal things going on, emotional hurts, looking around your physical environment and going, what can I clean up? What can I move? What can I process? And then in that, you're going to be doing the internal work at the same time. And then going, okay, when I'm doing the dishes, when I'm doing these mundane processes that we all do, am I repeating a conversation? Am I repeating something that's happened in the past? What is going on in my head? And so it's starting with what I call thought catching. So am I telling myself I'm not good enough? I'm not worthy enough? What is going on in my head, and catching it as it happens and replacing it with, that's the way I used to do it. And now I'm learning how to do it differently. Just changing it, replacing those thoughts, and then becoming present in the activity. So if you're doing the dishes, you're smelling, really bringing in the five senses. I'm smelling the bubbles. I'm smelling what the fragrance of that soap is. I'm feeling the texture of the plate that I'm washing, whatever it may be. And I'm really bringing in the five senses. And the more we bring in our five senses, then we're bringing in mindfulness. And that mindfulness is going to help declutter our brain and our just hyper thought processes that are always going on, because 95% of our thoughts is coming from the subconscious, and they're not new ideas. They're just repeated cycles. And so how can we quiet that so that we can create space to make conscious decisions? And thought catching is a really great way practice to do that.
Those are really good suggestions, really tangible things that you can actually do today.
Exactly. And that's how it should start, at least in the beginning. Like, if you want to connect with the divine, that's where you need to start first. It's really understanding what's going on in your head and bringing awareness. Awareness is always the first step.
I know there is one topic that we really wanted to discuss, if you have time.
Sure.
It's about raising spiritually minded kids.
Yeah.
Kind of helping them along their journey without interfering too much. Guiding them along the path without overstepping bounds, I guess.
Yep.
Any advice surrounding that topic?
I feel like children are like sponges, right? They want to see, and then they want to do. And so the biggest thing that you can do to help your kids is to heal yourself. And I do it in not like necessarily a closed door atmosphere. Like, it's okay for them to see that you're making time for yourself. And even if it is, I'm closing the door and mommy needs 10 minutes to take for herself, I'm taking a mommy timeout. Sometimes moms need a timeout. And I've done this. I don't know, like, I'm getting frustrated. Mommy's getting frustrated right now. And so I need to go take a timeout. I'm taking a timeout. So really, and then it's like incorporating the things. So having a morning ritual, having an evening ritual, having a morning and evening ritual for yourself that you're consistent with. And so then when they pop in and they're like, oh, mommy's journaling right now. My daughter sees me every morning journaling, like every morning. When she pops in, she's like, well, do I have a journal? I'm like, yep, here's a book, here's a pen. And she's like, great, I'm going to journal too. She's 7. But now she knows that journaling is normal. It can be part of her life, and that it's okay to write ideas down or draw pictures, and that we're creating space for that. It could be that you have a bowl of crystals, and every full moon you put your crystals out and that you say a little prayer, and it's just incorporating what you're already doing for yourself and not hiding it away. Right? And so doing that self-care practice is so key to supporting your children, because they're going to learn from watching. And then all of a sudden my daughter's like, Mom, I think you're kind of stressed out and you need a crystal session. Will you go lie down? Right? It's like, you're right. I could use a crystal session. And so she's just like, well, I think this one should go here. And she's just picking up on her own intuition of where the crystals need to go. And me not giving her rules, like I'm not saying this one has to go here, or you need to do it this way, or it only works this time of day. Like I'm letting go of the rules and letting her own intuition kind of dictate what needs to happen. And so this isn't like throwing out all structure for our kids. That's not it at all. It's just giving space so that they can be creative in their own way and feel into their own spiritual selves. And so like for my daughter, she took one of the house plants, drug it into her room and named it, and then like is caring for it and loving on it and telling it positive messages every day. And I'm like, I don't know
Awesome.
where that came from, but that's beautiful. Yes, just keep doing that. So there's so many different ways we can support our kids, but like getting them in nature, letting them see us be our true authentic selves, and having our own emotional range, and knowing that, sometimes I'm sad and sometimes I'm angry, and it's okay. And this is how we're going to process it. And when I'm angry, I'm going to do this type of activity to get it out, so it's not going to affect my relationship with you tomorrow, or taking the time out, or whatever it is. So yes, I feel like doing your own healing work is number one. Like, and that is going to show them that they're worthy to take a time out when they need a mental health moment. They can take it. It's giving them permission when they see mom or dad doing that practice.
There was an incident that came up with my daughter, my youngest, she's 9. And she was at school and talking very openly with her friends about things like past lives. And my mom used to live on a different planet and, stuff like that. And the little boy, he just said, your mom's crazy. And I think it kind of hurt her heart a little bit. And I think she stood up to him for me, which was really darling of her to do.
Yeah.
But I wondered if you had any suggestions of how I can navigate that with her. Because the way my truth isn't necessarily everybody's truth,
Right.
but how do I tell her that some people aren't going to see it that way, if you know what I mean?
Well, I think even just the way you said that would be appropriate, like, and having those conversations, because especially in our institutionalized systems, we are going through a paradigm shift in our institutional systems. I think that was part of COVID. We're having to reformat how we do school, even if it is what they think is going to be temporary, right? And so things are changing. And when we have experiences like the one you described, where someone's giving her another point of view that doesn't match her current reality, then she has a choice. Well, am I going to believe this random person on the playground, or am I going to believe my mom?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so she gets to know that she gets to choose. And part of it is like, she's actually planting seeds for him later on when he hears it again.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to know that when she comes home and she's upset by that, she goes, well, this is about being respectful. I'm respecting other people and their beliefs and their values, and I'm not going to try to change anyone, but I'm going to honor me and what I believe. And I'm going to show respect to myself, going, well, this is how I see the world. Right. And so having those kind of conversations of going, well, did you explain it in a respectful way that they can choose whatever they want to believe? And, we're not here to change anyone else's minds, and that's okay. But we get to choose how we want to experience life and how we want to see things. And, our way might be more fun, and let them experience that when they're home and they're in their comfort zones. And as they get older, especially when they move into their preteen, early teenage years, this is when, solar plexus is starting to develop. So each of the chakras develop every 7 years. So root chakra is 0 to 7, and then sacral chakra, that playful child, is 8 through 14, and then 14 through 21 is solar plexus. And so when they are teenagers, this is when they're starting to identify who they are separate from their parents. And so as you are in the phase of childhood, you get to share exactly who you are, your beliefs, your values, and really setting their firm foundations in that. And then when they get to their curious point in their teenage years, they get to decide. And so like my son's 14, he's still figuring out who he is, what he wants, all of this. And that's normal, but consistently going like, this is what I believe. What are your thoughts on that? And letting them form their own opinions and going, well, you know, this my friend believes this over here, and my friend believes this over here, and my friend believes this over here. I go, well, what is it that you want to hold true? What is it going to work for you? Like, it doesn't matter if it matches mine exactly or if it doesn't match mine at all, but I want you to be true to you and who you are. And so honoring them as an individual, for especially during the teenagers, it's different with the youngers, because the youngers are wanting to mold especially to their mother model. And so you reflecting that consistently, like showing them that self-care is important, that they can believe whatever they want and express themselves in a healthy way. And so part of it is just not shutting them down. So if they are crawling around and pretending to be a jaguar, well, guess what? I pet the jaguar. I'm like, have a nice day, jaguar. I'm going off to the grocery store now, you know, whatever it is, like just honoring how they're showing up. And I think so much of how we have changed generationally is that our parents really wanted us to fit into the norm, right? We were told, no, you need to get dressed today and wear appropriate clothes, and your socks have to match, and, you know, whatever it was, right? We were really conditioned to fit into a mold. And now we have this new generation of kids that are growing up that we're being more flexible. We're not giving them hard ties on what they're supposed to look like or how they're supposed to act or how they're supposed to be. We're letting their own individuality come out in a playful way. And in that, they're getting to express themselves and learn what they like and what they don't, without it necessarily being my ideologies and what I believe has to be pushed onto them. Yeah.
That was such awesome advice. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I love kids. I love teenagers the most though. And most people are like, I don't understand that. I'm like, teenagers are awesome. I love working with teens.
Well, it's just been so amazing talking to you, Christine. We're coming up on the top of the hour, and I want to make sure we have enough time to let our listeners know how they can find out more about you and your offerings and your chakra clairvoyance practitioner certification and your 7-day chakra challenge that you have coming up.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, ReikiCafe University is my business, and you can pretty much find it on most of the popular social media platforms. So on Facebook, ReikiCafe University, we have our own Facebook group called ReikiCafe Community, and our 7-day chakra jumpstart program starting on January 3rd is going to be live streamed there, and we'll be posting the Zoom link there as well. So you're welcome to come into the community, whether or not you're a Reiki practitioner. You're welcome to come in and experience this space with us. I have a website called ReikiCafeUniversity.com, and there you're going to find my programs. The one that we're really focusing on right now is the launch of our 7-month signature program called Chakra Clairvoyance Coaching Certification, where we're focusing on each of those areas to really develop your own craft, your own particular way of sharing your gifts with the world through chakras, through clairvoyance, through shamanic techniques, and learning how to be a powerful transformational coach. So that's a 7-month experience, and we're starting January 24th. But my website is full of all kinds of things. If you're interested in learning Reiki, we have Reiki classes ongoing. They're online with 12 months of support. So definitely check out, look around, because we have 3 different colleges. We have the College of Chakras, the College of Reiki, and the College of Business. So it's fun, and I love what I do, and I love inspiring other lightworkers, practitioners, healers to really embrace their own truth and shine to the world.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We really, really appreciate you and all of the light that you've shared with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a blast talking with both of you.
Oh, great. Well, and to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's discussion, please like and subscribe to our channel and hop on over to Christine's website and channel as well, and we'll leave the link below. So we'll have that there. And we look forward to bringing more conscious conversations to you. And until next time, we're Cosmic Soul Sisters, sending you love and light.
Bye for now, guys.
Bye.